All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining today. My name is Yara Negri, and I'll be walking through today's webinar. The topic is going to be innovative tools to boost adoption within 365 through engagement and gamification. So we're going to take a look at a set of tools today that can really help take analytics data and turn that data into engagement, into gamification, where the goal is to really take action, and we'll talk more about this shortly. A bit of housekeeping. First of all, the webinar is being recorded, so if you want to share this with colleagues, you will be getting a link to the recording in the next day or so. And if you have any questions throughout the webinar, you can feel free to send them over to us through the GoToWebinar questions panel. So if you have any questions, we'll leave some time towards the end for any questions. We'll start with a quick introduction about Interlock and what it is that we do. We'll talk about measurement and gamification and its importance in the modern workplace. Take a look at a demo at how we can put those ideas into action. And as I mentioned, we'll conclude by going over any questions that you might have. The webinar will be about 30 minutes, so it's kind of our agenda for the next 30 minutes or so. So a quick introduction. Interlock Card Analytics was founded around 17 years ago, where we saw a need for understanding what in the world is going on within SharePoint. Our customers really wanted a way to better manage SharePoint by understanding what's going on and how it's being used. And so 17 years ago, we created this product to help monitor SharePoint. And over the years, we grew with Microsoft to the cloud, where today we can track everything from SharePoint on-Prem to SharePoint Online, Teams, Yammer, Viva Connections, OneDrive, and so forth. The idea to have a single tool to really monitor all of 365. There are a few different pillars that our customers see vital. The first pillar, the core, and really what everything else is based of, is the monitor pillar. The idea is to provide customers with insights on exactly what is going on within 365, what's being used, and more importantly, what's not in use. Do you have entire SharePoint sites or entire teams that are not being used at all? Maybe there are specific departments who don't know how to use SharePoint well or need more training. So Monitor allows us to track how people are using 365 and really give customers the data and insights they need to better manage that environment. The second pillar here is going to be engage, which is where we take all that wonderful data and turn it into action. So if under Monitor, we find out that few folks are accessing our new HR site, then with Engage, we can take action and remind people about that wonderful new HR site. Or if under Monitor, we discover that our sales team is not very active in SharePoint, then let's target sales, make sure they know how to use SharePoint, offer them some training, and again, that could be for Teams, Yammer, or anything else. So the engagement pillar really takes all the data and helps turn it into action. The next pillar is enhance. As we get these insights about SharePoint, we can make tweaks and changes to make the experience better for our users. So if you go back to Monitor, we find out that a few folks are clicking on a specific button on our home page. Well, that of course is a huge waste of real estate on the homepage. Once we're aware of that, we are empowered. We can go back and enhance SharePoint, maybe swap that link and link the content really needed by our users. And finally here is gamification. We saw over the years that typically only a handful of users get access to the data under the monitor pillar, usually admins, site owners. And we wanted a way to push out this data to all the end users. And we wanted to do that in a way where they could get more excited about using tools like SharePoint, where they could, we could make it more of a kind of game for users, where they could compete and actually get points as they use SharePoint. So the idea is to create a fun visual where people can get more points, see how they score, how they compete with colleagues, and that's part of the gamification portion that we'll see as well. Today we'll focus on the measurement, engagement, and motivation. And with that, let me dive into our demo here, and we'll show you some examples. So while the demo will focus on the engagement and the gamification portions, all of that is based on this, the data that's being collected. So let's start here, and we'll dive into a dashboard focused on some SharePoint analytics, but again, we can see similar dashboards for Teams, for Yammer, for Exchange, and really anything else. So there's lots of rich data here. Here on the far left, you can see the SharePoint hierarchy, so you can report on specific areas, show me data just for a specific site or page. Here under content, we have this chart and table. Let's open that up where we can show the most popular content within SharePoint, or here by clicking, we can flip that around to show the least popular content, or even content not being viewed at all. So do you have documents, page, maybe entire sites that are currently not being used? Well, once you're aware of this, you're empowered. You can go back and enhance by either removing unneeded content or by surfacing important content. We have lots of data here, like the duration the content is viewed for, the number of likes that content received. And so the base here to start out by giving you the data so that you know how to better manage platforms like Yammer, Teams, and SharePoint. Here under adoption, we can see a breakdown by department. So which departments typically use SharePoint, which ones typically don't. You can use any attributes you want, whether that's region, department, branch, job title, and any other attributes you might have from AD or SharePoint profiles. And everything here can work as a filter. So if I click here on the marketing department, we can filter out the data to show just folks from the marketing department and what they're doing, what they're interacting with within SharePoint. Or vice versa, if there's specific content you're curious about, we can select that, like here, signed contracts. If we click on that, we will now see which departments typically interact with that content. So the idea is to give you all the data you need to better manage SharePoint. Let's see a few quick examples here before we dive into the engagement and gamification portions. Next dashboard may be focused around search analytics. And here at the bottom left-hand side, you can see the top search terms like benefits, business data. Of course, if that's the case, maybe adding a link from our homepage to employee benefits can save a lot of time they currently spent searching for that content. At the top here, some quick metrics, a little concerning here. Only 49% of searchers are clicking on one of the results. So over half of our users arrive at what we call only 49% are clicking on a result, so over half arrive at what we call a failed search, as they find none of the results relevant. And Cardiolog translates that into time. Here we're losing about 94 hours of lost productivity on failed search alone. We can also show a lot of insights around how people navigate through the portal. We'll start out with some basics and then dive a bit deeper. But here you can just copy and paste any URL, any page you're curious about, or search for it right here. For example, a home page, an important announcement. And then with previous pages, find out how people get to that page. And with next pages, find out where folks are going to as their next step. So where do folks typically go to from the home page? If you'd like a more in-depth funnel or journey, we can show that as well. And here you can build any kind of journeys or funnels that you'd like to measure. So if you want to see how people navigate through the portal. And again, we talked about enhancing SharePoint. If here the most popular journey ends up at the training videos page, maybe adding a link to this page way over here at the portal homepage can save them the extra steps they currently need to make to get to that content. So again, the idea is that as you have more insights about how people use SharePoint, we can really take the actions and make the changes in order to make SharePoint better for those users. Video tracking is also available. If we want to see how people are engaging with videos, we can see that right here. So for each video, you can see how many times they were viewed, but also how many times they were completely viewed, and how much percentage of the video is typically watched as well. Easy to filter this. If I click here on a video, we can filter the views here on the right to see which ones actually watch the videos. If you have some some videos as part of the onboarding process, we can see which users actually watch the videos, or vice versa. If I click here on a user, we can see if this user actually went through all the onboarding videos. For the monitor portion, besides the dashboards, we also have on-page analytics. So this is an amazing visual where you can see the SharePoint page and see exactly what's going on. So we'll start out with click maps. Here, every blue dot will indicate a click of the mouse, so we can see the more popular areas on the page. If you don't want to count the blue dots, we can roll that up. And here, when you hover over an element, like a web part, an image, a title, a button, or a link, we'll show you how many times that item was clicked on. Here again, if this link is not clicked on often, that might be a huge waste of real estate on the home page. But once you're aware of that, you're empowered. We can now go back, remove this link, maybe a link to content really needed by our users. We can also provide things like heat map and scroll map as well. So how far down the page are people actually scrolling? Do we have important content towards the bottom of the page? And then find out that few folks actually scroll down there. So it's no wonder that people are not aware of that new policy or new content. So again, the idea is that as you have these insights, you can make the tweaks, the changes to make SharePoint better for your users. So that was the data portion. What's going on in SharePoint and really the insights to better manage. From here, we'll dive into engagement, and then gamification will be next to see how we can take all that data, but really turn it into action, turn it into a game and competition. And so here for the engagement, the first step will be, who do we want to engage with? You might want to target everyone in your organization. and maybe tell everyone about a new policy or the new HR site that you're launching. Maybe in the data a moment ago where we saw data by department, and we saw that our sales team is not very active, we can target just a specific department. So here under the groupies, you can target a specific department, maybe a specific branch. If we found out the New York office is not very active in SharePoint. So the idea is to target users based on specific attributes from AD or SharePoint profiles, for example. Or because we're tracking all the users, we can actually target folks who are perhaps inactive, who have never accessed Teams or never accessed SharePoint or Yammer, or have not done so, let's say folks have not accessed SharePoint in the past 30 days. So now the idea is that I can interact with a very specific group of users, just the inactive ones, and send them a very specific and relevant message, such as here's some training on how to use SharePoint or Teams, or maybe a reminder about what you're missing out on by not using SharePoint. So I can send the right message to the right audience. Next step is how we want to engage with that audience. So speaking about SharePoint, we can show a pop-up right on the SharePoint pages. So perhaps in the data a moment ago, if we found out that no one is using our new HR site, we can show them this red pop-up at the top of the page, which can say something like, check out the new HR site, and have a link to that site. So the idea is to drive engagement to that important content that currently folks are unaware of. If our goal is to boost adoption with folks who don't use SharePoint, instead of pop-ups, maybe an email, a message within Teams, or maybe a text message to everyone in sales with a link to the new sales collateral. So the idea is to really engage with users based on the data we saw a few moments ago to help take action, such as increase adoption in this scenario. Next step, we'll design our campaign. So I'll just write something like, check out the new HR site. Here I can have a link or a button take users to that site. And what's really wonderful is because this is all leveraging the underlying data, this pop-up will only appear to users who have not yet accessed the HR site. So it won't pop up to users who have it. It won't kind of bother them. It'll only pop up for folks who should really know and discover this wonderful new content. So it's a very dynamic campaign based on who you are and what you're doing, or in this case, what you're not doing within SharePoint. Maybe instead of checkout, you want to get some feedback. Let's change this to what do you think about the new HR site? And here, instead of a link or a button, I'll have people rate my new site. Or maybe on the current site, on the older version, I'll ask for open text-based feedback. I can tell everyone that we're about to redesign the site, and we'd love to get their feedback on what's working for them, what's missing, and really how we can improve the site for them. Final step here in the engagement is going to be to define a trigger. So you can schedule the campaign based on a specific date and time, or maybe based on an action. So when someone is actually scrolling down the page, that's when we'll ask them to confirm that they read the new policy. Or when they're viewing a specific page, when they're on the HR site, that's when we'll ask them for a feedback about the HR site. Or on the CO blog, we can ask them, what topics do you want the CO to blog about? Earlier in the data, we saw we were struggling with search. We had a very, very high failed search rate. So maybe when users are searching, that's when we'll ask them the feedback about how easy it is for them to find the content that they are looking for. And so as they're using search and experiencing that, they can give us that real-time feedback so that we know how to improve. Usually, organizations send out a random survey, maybe once a quarter or once every year or so, asking for feedback about the intranet, where many users forget about challenges they might have had. The idea here is to really engage users at the moment and be able to collect that feedback all in real time. So that is the engagement portion. We're going to take all the wonderful insights and data we saw earlier and turn that into action. The final step here is going to be gamification. So here on this SharePoint page, at the very top, we have the gamification ribbon. As I mentioned earlier, over the years, we saw that only admins or site owners really have access to the analytics data. And this gamification is a way for us to push the data to all of our end users in a way that's fun, that's competitive. And so let's take a quick look here. Here we're playing as Rebecca, and Rebecca here will receive points or coins for performing actions, in this case within SharePoint. But again, this could be within Teams or other platforms. You can, of course, assign a specific value of points or coins for different actions based on what you want to promote. So perhaps viewing content will be worth 1 page, whereas if you want to promote things like liking content and commenting, more social actions, then liking might be worth 5 points and commenting perhaps is worth 10 points. The point is that you can really assign a value for each action based on what you want to encourage people to do. So as Rebecca goes through SharePoint and views content and takes other actions, she's going to see her coins increase with every action. So it's all real time, it's all very game-like. She does something in SharePoint and her coins are going to go up. As she does more within SharePoint, she can achieve these different badges here. And we have different badges that can be used. So again, the user can see progress and how she is achieving those badges as she performs more actions in SharePoint. And then we get to the kind of leaderboard portion, or the competitive part of this game. Here it's both an individual competition where Rebecca can see how she competes with her colleagues in the QA team, and it's also a group effort where different departments are competing against each other. So if you want managers or department leads to encourage people to use Teams, to use SharePoint, then here in this group competition, we can see that or help that motivation as well. So Rebecca will constantly see how she goes up and down in this leaderboard as she performs different actions in SharePoint, and of course, as her colleagues perform actions, their points will go up as well. We typically reset the game every week or every month to bring everyone back to the same starting point, so no one gets a huge number of points and can never lose. And we're going to here congratulate the winners of last week's competition. And typically, just from this recognition, that is typically enough to help drive people to want to use Teams or SharePoint more often. And so this is a wonderful, wonderful way to congratulate these users and encourage them and others to continue to use the platforms and more often. Finally, we have the insights area. Here again, because we collect all this rich data, if we find out that everyone in the QA team has read the CO blog, in this case, we can recommend that for Rebecca as well, as she'll probably be interested in it if everyone else on her team has read it. And so here, of course, she's discovering new content, and then, of course, getting points as well for consuming that content. So that is a quick introduction to the way we can take and leverage gamification and engagement to really drive action within SharePoint to boost adoption, to boost engagement. With the last 2 or 3 minutes of our half hour, I'm happy to conclude with any questions that you might have. Feel free to use the GoToWebinar questions box to send over any questions. All right, so I see here, David has a question. Let's take a look. Can this be used for SharePoint on-prem as well, or just online? So David, this can be used for just about all parts of 365. You can use this definitely for SharePoint on-prem as well. Today we are compatible with SharePoint 2013, 2016, and 2019, and of course SharePoint Online. And you can of course use this for a mix of platforms. So if you have a hybrid of SharePoint on-prem and SharePoint Online, and you want to add Teams and Yammer as well, the idea is that Cardinal can track all those environments for you. All right, Jen is asking about the licensing. So first of all, Jen will send you an email right after the call with more details, but at a high level, the Cardinal license is based on traffic, so the amount of users that we are tracking. The license is a yearly subscription, and again, we'll send you more information right after the webinar today. All right, I see that's all the questions we have at this time. So for now, I thank you all so much for joining today's webinar. If you do have any questions in the coming days, you can reach out to us, and we'll be happy to set up a demo or a trial for your team. Thank you all so much for joining, and have a wonderful day.